Welcome, everybody, to the Fanmouth Daily Fantasy Baseball Breakdown. Today is Monday, May the 12th. I'm Joe Marsh, joined today by Dave Del Grande and Jeff Collins. How you fellas doing today?
What's up?
Just honored to be in your presence.
All right. Got 10 games today. They are all 7 o'clock Eastern Time start games. The weather looks pretty good. Maybe a bit of rain, a chance of rain in New York, St. Louis, Baltimore. Keep an eye on those games. But I think we're going to be pretty clear today. So we'll go through each game. We're going to tell you position by position who we like, help you build your lineup, have some fun. Now, we always start with pitcher. Today's not a day that I'm really in love with any pitchers or the way the matchups are shaking out. I would still go with Felix Hernandez. Like I said, I don't love him, but I'd rather take my chances with him than anybody else. The Rays are hitting 233 on the road. They've been shut out 3 times this year. I don't have to tell you much about Hernandez's stats. He's the best pitcher going tonight. So I feel like that's a good play. I would probably pair him with Jordan Zimmermann. He's been really good this season. I was looking at his numbers. If you take out his one bad start against the Marlins, that's sort of an outlying start. He's got a 1.98 ERA. He's got a 9.24 Ks per 9 on the season. And he's facing Arizona's offense, which has been a little bit better lately, but is still sort of a mediocre offense. So that's where I would go with pitching. Jeff, where are you going with pitching today?
I might be the only one that is not sold on Felix today. His velocity's dropping. You saw for the first time in his career he had 0 strikeouts in his last game. So he doesn't look like the same Felix to me. So I think being that everyone's going to be on him, this is a good opportunity to fade him and not go that direction. I agree with you, though. In general, pitching is just ugly. Yesterday, it was beautiful. I had 6 or 7 guys that I liked. They all did well. And today, it's like really trying to pick through everyone and figure out, okay, am I comfortable with this guy or not? I'm not going to be excited about any of them, but I need to find a couple that I'm comfortable with. And one of them is Tim Lincecum. I know that sounds crazy, and it goes back to just there not being that many options today. But Lincecum actually pitched well in Atlanta against the same team, and he has very good success against some of their key players like Freddie Freeman and Justin Upton. If you look at the BVP numbers there, he actually does really well against them. So that is a guy I'd be looking at. And then besides that, I mean, it's just really ugly. Danny Herron would be another guy, but not a guy I'm super excited about. He's a guy that usually goes 6 innings, gives up less than 3 runs. So on Fanmouth, you get bonus points for quality starts. I think he's in a really good spot to get a quality start here. So kind of looking at it that way, just like where can I find some extra points? And that's what I'm looking at.
Yeah, I think we agree with, there's nothing to get excited about. Everywhere you look, there's some sort of matchup problem, or a split that you don't like with a pitcher going tonight.
And one more thing about Herron, I would be stupid to not bring this up, but Miami is who he's facing, right? And their home and away splits are absolutely ridiculous. If you look at their offensive numbers at home compared to on the road, it's like night and day. And there's like people going so far as to say that at home Miami is stealing signs. I was asking about this on Twitter the other day. Tommy G was talking about them stealing signs, so I looked it up, and actually, like, the Mets are thinking the same thing. Like, they're changing up their signs when they go to Miami, and so it's a legitimate concern that there's good reason that Miami's offense is not good on the road.
Yeah, they're also a team that hits lefties a lot better than righties, so that's another reason to like Herron today. Dave, what are you thinking at pitcher?
I'm thinking you guys are dead wrong about pitching tonight. There is
you and I had 3 of the same pitchers. How can I be that wrong?
There is a sleeper pitcher going tonight who is the play of the day today in baseball. He hasn't been mentioned yet by you guys, which is good. I'm not even going to mention it myself. I'm going to be the only guy who has it.
This is an advice show, Dave.
Come on, Dave.
All right. It's Lions of the Cardinals. Well, first off, if you look at his 3 starts this year, he averages a strikeout an inning. Okay, that's better than any other pitcher going tonight. Now, he's only started 3 times, and he only usually starts 6 innings in these games. But if you look, every game he pitches 6 innings, he strikes out 6. He pitches 6 innings, he strikes out 6. He's a big strikeout guy. Secondly, the Cubs are terrible hitting left-handed pitchers. Okay, so he's got a big advantage going there. And thirdly, the Cubs pitcher tonight is the worst guy going statistically. Wood has been atrocious on the road. 222 whip in his 3 road starts, so it's not a small sample size either. You put it all together, the Cardinals project to be the easiest winner tonight, and this pitching matchup is the biggest mismatch going. Usually I'm not a guy who's big on strikeouts either. It just so happens that this guy strikes guys out as well. So, and he's a very low price guy. I think he's I think on a night where you guys, we kind of all agree there's no obvious pitching choice, or certainly no two obvious choices. I think he's a good guy to put in that second slot tonight.
Yeah, the magic is great too. And real quick, just on Vegas, every guy we're talking about has an over/under of 7.5 or lower. So it's interesting just to look at the fact that Vegas is kind of agreeing with the guys that we're selecting. Even Tim Lincecum in that game, it's the over/under is 7. It's the lowest of the day. So.
Yeah, I'm with you. I was on Lions as well. I had him on my rankings. But I want to get back to something you said. You said he averages 1 strikeout per inning, and that's higher than anyone else going today. But there are a couple guys with a bit of a higher Ks per 9. I know Zimmerman's is over 9 Ks per 9. So is Hernandez. Is that what you were saying?
Yeah, that is what I was saying. I didn't realize that.
Okay. Yeah, I don't think he's the highest, but I think given his price, that's a pretty good number to be at. All right, moving over to catcher. A guy I've loved for a while, and now, he was a bit under the radar for a while. Now he's absolutely on everyone's radar, is Derek Norris. He's been crushing the ball. He's one of the top offensive catcher options that there are now, especially against a weak lefty. He's got a 1.108 OPS against lefties, hitting .385 on the season, coming off a monster performance last night. He's a guy you have to consider starting every day. He is now one of the top, like I said, catching options. If you want a punt catcher, I believe, Hector Sanchez is a guy I usually like in the lineup. I think, their usual lineup will be more of him behind the plate and Posey at first base with Belt out. They may mix it up, put Arias at first base, but I think Sanchez, given his cheap price, is a decent punt option. What do you think behind the plate, Dave?
Well, I agree with Norris. It's hard to argue against him. The only thing that is bad about him is that his price, and rightfully so. He's the second highest priced guy. If you compare his numbers with Iannetta, Iannetta's actually having a better season against left-handed pitchers. I just focus on, both guys are facing left-handers tonight. Norris's OPS is slightly higher, but fantasy points a game, Iannetta's actually higher, 4.8 to 4.6. The pitching matchup tonight is similar. I don't like either of the starting pitchers going against them. And Iannetta's price is the 11th highest among catchers, and Norris is second. So I think comparable catchers, comparable numbers, way different salaries for some reason. So I'd give Iannetta the nod here over Norris.
Jeff, what do you think of a catcher?
I think recently there's no one that compares to Derek Norris, though. If you look at his last 40 at-bats, he has 20 hits, and he's coming off a 2-home-run game. Like Joe said, a weak lefty is really where you want to have Norris in your lineup. I realize on Fanmouth that he's expensive, but this is a guy that I think it's really hard to sit him. And going back to Hector Sanchez, the only thing I'd be cautious of, Joe, is I think Michael Morse is actually going to be playing a lot of first base. So I don't think Hector Sanchez is going to get much playing time. We'll see, though. He could get a few more games.
Yeah, that's more of a check the lineup. If he's in there, I always like him as a play just because he's very cheap.
Yeah.
Moving over to first base. I like a lot of Yankees today, especially. A lot of them have a large sample size against Cologne. A lot of them have good track records against Cologne. Everything for me today points to Teixeira. 6 homers in 52 at-bats this year from the left side. 3 homers and 42 at-bats against Cologne. 1.182 OPS at home. Hitting 300 in the month of May. He's hitting the ball well. It's a great matchup. I think Teixeira is one of the top plays of the day. I believe I even made him my home run play. There was a few guys I was considering, but I'm going to go with Teixeira today as my home run guy. Jeff, what do you think at first base?
Well, Chris Davis is back, man, and he's cheap, and he's facing a guy that he absolutely kills. Small sample size, as Joe and I talked about, the other day, Saturday. A lot of times you'll find some small sample sizes in BVP, but you can really draw some conclusions from them based on their power numbers. So Chris Davis against Rick Porcello is 5 for 15, whatever, right? But he has 3 home runs in those 5 hits. So I think Chris Davis is a good way to go, and being that he is underpriced because of his recent injury coming off the DL, I think that's a really good way to go.
Yeah, we talked about that. I like that. As long as if the sample size is small, I would want to see a really astronomical home run per at bat number. That's a great number. 3 out of 15. Nothing to argue with there on the BVP. Dave, what do you think at first base?
Well, I think there's a lot of good first basemen going tonight, and so much so that I think that you really got to consider one as your utility player as well. I call Victor Martinez a first baseman. Fanmouth, you can't get him at first base, but certainly he is a utility option. He had 4 home runs last week. And he's got a good matchup tonight. I like Freeman against right-hand. I know Jeff mentioned earlier he doesn't have much success against Lincecum. Lincecum is so inconsistent that you pitch as well against a team one time, he's going to pitch poorly against them the next time probably. I like his season-long numbers against right-handers. I like Teixeira as well as a first baseman, worth considering. But again, I've got a big-time sleeper at first base.
Cron's not a sleeper anymore.
He's not. Well, he is price-wise. I mean, he's down at the bottom of the charts. He started his last 2 starts last week. Saturday he got 2 hits, including a homer, drove in 2 runs. Wednesday he got 3 hits, including 2 doubles, and drove in a run. He's again, small sample size, but this guy is crushing left-handed pitching. If they're facing a left-hander, I'm presuming he's going to be in the lineup again tonight. Just based on those numbers, you got to have him in there.
Yeah, I know that based on price, he's a sleeper. Yeah, absolutely, that's a good pick.
I really like Teixeira as my low-end guy, but yeah, he's a guy I like as well. I probably will put one of them at utility because I do like that play as well. Moving over to second base, Jeffrey, what do you got?
Second base on Fanmouth for me, it's been like the same guy every day for last week. It's Gordon Beckham. He's on fire right now. He's low priced. You can save a little bit of money there and spend bigger at the outfield and first base positions, which are the positions I spend most of my money. So he's batting leadoff sometimes now. Even he's getting plenty of at bats and really racking up the hits. He had a game with 4 hits, so I like him.
Dave, what are you thinking?
I don't really like the position, so like Jeff, I'd be looking for a value. I think Cano is somebody, is he a value? Well, he's the 10th highest salary only on Fanmouth, and he's not having a great season. Did have 9 hits last week. Maybe that's an indication that he's heating up some. Also I'll go for a high potential guy who seems to be heating up at a fairly low price. So a lukewarm recommendation for Cano tonight at second base.
Problem is he's not showing any power, I mean, he's batting, around 290 now with 1 home run on the year. And he's batting in a pitcher's park, too. I don't like Cano all year, I know you're saying he's a value. I get that. You look at his talent level and his price, and it just seems to make sense. So I don't mind it, but I'm just more commenting on the fact that I'm shocked at how poor of a season he's having.
I wasn't that shocked.
I'm sorry, I agree with that. And if early on in the year, based on previous seasons, based on his name, you got his bad season and you paid the 3rd or 4th or 5th highest price. Now his numbers, salary-wise, have dipped way down to, the season that he's having. And so I just think he's, like I said, you look at last week, and he certainly didn't have a great week last week. But, he is starting to hit the ball better. I think he hit 300 for the week last week. Maybe the next thing to come is a little more extra base power, a little more runs. But I'm just looking for a price there.
And it brings, I know Joe wants to say something too, but let me jump in here real quick because I don't want you to move on. But it brings up an interesting strategy or, way to look at things is either regression to the mean or a guy that's going to perform better eventually. You know that Cano's not going to end up at this pace for home runs. He's not going to hit 5 home runs for the year. So do you start taking him now where he's lower priced, knowing that you're going to get those better numbers, knowing that he's going to end up having to have a hit streak to put up some reasonable numbers, But go ahead, Joe. Sorry to cut you off.
I was just going to say I wasn't expecting big things from Cano this season. I mean, I wouldn't expect anything like he's been doing in Yankee Stadium with the Yankee lineup. He really doesn't have anyone protecting him in Seattle. And like you mentioned, he's not in the same hitter's park that he used to be, especially for a left-hander.
But on
So,
pace for 5 home runs, you're
no,
expecting.
exactly. I mean, I think he may finish around 20 home runs, but I wouldn't
Yeah,
I wouldn't expect 30 home runs this
I
season
agree
at
with you
all.
there. Yeah, I'm
But
just saying, like,
like you said, now you've narrowed it down to where you're going to find 19 home runs or so the rest of the year. If you
uh-huh,
plug them in here and there, you may be able to capitalize on that.
absolutely.
And
Uh,
let's factor in tonight's starter for Tampa as well. Is Ramos tonight. He's what I would consider to be a below average pitcher. So you got a guy who I think is heating up a little bit, below average pitcher going against him. Maybe this is the time to jump on his bandwagon at a low price.
Yeah, I'll get to my guy now. It's D. Gordon is a guy who I always like when he's facing a weak defensive catcher. He's hitting 375 this year against righties. I think the big difference is his ability to get on base this year is why he has 24 stolen bases. He's got 4 stolen bases in 3 games against the Marlins. They got Saltalamacchia behind the plate. They've got a righty on the mound. Saltalamacchia is not a very good defensive catcher.
He's okay.
He's okay. Yeah, I mean he's okay.
And Coleman's really good at holding runners on. I looked at D. Gordon, but I actually went away from him for the opposite reason that you're saying. I think that Kohler holds guys on pretty well, and Saltalamacchia is like average. I don't think he's bad.
I think he's slightly below average. I think he's caught about maybe I don't have the stats in front of me 4 of 19 or something like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean he had a 3 stolen base game against the Marlins earlier in the year. Like I said,
and
4 stolen bases in 3 games.
In your defense, like who can really outthrow D. Gordon? It's like it doesn't matter who's behind the dish.
And even the Giants, with Posey behind the plate, had a hard time slowing down D. Gordon.
Posey does not have good numbers throwing guys out. But yeah, anyway.
Yeah, another play. I like Bonifacio too. If you want to go a cheap option, he's good against lefties as well.
Yep.
Moving over to third base, there's a couple obvious guys here. Dave, who do you like at third base?
Well, my guy maybe isn't one of the obvious ones. It's matchup based. I talked earlier about how I like the Cardinals against the Cubs tonight. I think one of the hottest kid hitters for the Cardinals going now is Carpenter. It's a good matchup for him. He hits left-handers well. Wood is not pitching well on the road. I think the Cardinals are going to score a lot of runs tonight. And the other third base options, I like both the Yankees options at third base. They're slightly lower priced than him, but I'm not sure which of the two to take. But I like Carpenter. He's going to be one of the Cardinals I get in the lineup tonight.
Jeff, who do you like?
I like Dave's pick there. I don't mind him, especially for cash games, because he gets his points in so many different ways. But the guy I'm looking at is Josh Donaldson. Again, based on matchup, I think right-handers are a good way to go for Oakland today. Josh Donaldson hasn't been playing as well as he did at the beginning of the year, but this is an extremely talented guy, kind of like we were talking about with Cano. But I mean, he's doing way better than Cano, especially power-wise. But just one of those guys that even though he's not performing extremely well, that those numbers are going to have to get better. He's not going to bat 250 for the year or whatever he's batting right now, So, and against the lefties is where you want to take him.
Yeah, I would say when there's a weak lefty like Danks on the mound against a team like Oakland, you're gonna have to have a good reason not to look at Donaldson, Derek Norris, and Cespedes. Those are guys who crush left-handed pitchers. So yeah, I mean Donaldson is a guy who's absolutely great against lefties. I would probably go with a cheaper option because I've given a few more high-priced option. I think Dave said Solardi is a good cheap piece for the Yankees offense. I'm gonna try to get as many Yankees as I can against Cologne. He's hitting 327 against lefties, both against righties. I'm sorry, both of his home runs have come against righties. I think it's going to be a high scoring. I think he'll get a couple hits, have a chance to score some runs, and drive in some runs as well.
What do you guys think about Manny Machado? He actually hit a home run the other day, his first home run. He's really struggled when he first came off the DL, but now he put together a decent game yesterday, I believe, too, with a couple of hits.
Yeah, and his price is a bit depressed. I think Machado's a good option, too. And it always takes some time. I mean, he hadn't seen live pitching in a while. So, you wouldn't expect him to just come back and start hitting right away. You want to wait till he's kind of gotten in the groove a little bit. What do you think on Machado, Dave?
And well, I agree with you guys. I think it's once you see a sign of life from a guy like that at his low price, you know you're not going to get him at a low price for much longer, and so you have to try to time it right. I've got respect for Porcello, so I don't know that tonight would be the night I'd put him in the lineup. In fact, maybe even the series, given the quality of Detroit's pitching staff, that maybe I'd be a little hesitant, unfortunately. But I do think the timing is right. That's what I was mentioning before with Cano. One of the reasons I want to jump on board with him is I sense an uptick with him while his price is low. I think Machado's in that same ballpark.
All right, Dave, what do you think at shortstop?
Well, I like three guys at shortstop, and they're all a little higher priced than I want, so I'm not really crazy about any of them. I think Lowry would probably be my choice. I was looking for the cheapest of the three between Lowry and Andrus and Ibar. To me, they're very similar. They're very similar matchups tonight. I like all three of them. I was hoping that one would be significantly cheaper than the others. They aren't. They're pretty much in the same price tag. I don't have a strong recommendation here. I do agree with certainly what Joe, you've been saying, that I think the A's are going to put up some runs tonight. He bats right in the middle of that order, and while he's not one of the big three you talked about, if he's in the middle of it, maybe he tags along with it. So he would be my lukewarm pick at shortstop. Lowry.
All right, lot of lukewarmness coming out of Dave over there. Jeff, who do you like at shortstop?
Dave was pretty confident about his pitcher, though. I'll give him that,
Yeah.
But
and
yeah, Dave,
Crone. Let's not leave out, Crone.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm loading up. I'm loading up in the outfield if I'm going with Crone and a low-priced pitcher. So stay tuned.
All right.
I like what Dave's saying about Lowry. It's like if you and I all like Cespedes and Josh Donaldson and those guys, it's Lowry's probably going to be on base while they're knocking him in. So I like that strategy there. I think it's interesting, finally, that we don't have Troy Tulowitzki to choose from. So, we might have some diversity in everyone's lineups.
We actually had to do some work today.
I know, right? It's like it's not so automatic. But Jose Reyes, for me, is a really close second to Tulowitzki when I'm looking to build my lineup. Sometimes I'm, just frustrated that Tulowitzki is available and I have to take him so I don't fall behind because I'm so interested in Jose Reyes. And he's been on fire lately. He's been scoring a ton of runs. And if you look at Fanmouth's scoring system, it is weighted heavily towards run production, scoring runs and driving in runs. And, he hit a home run. He's hit a couple home runs in recent games. He's stealing bases. The Rogers Center is a place I always like to take hitters. So Jose Reyes would be the way I go there, or a strategy I like to take if I'm fading the top guys, to just go as cheap as possible. I'll look at the lineups today and figure out who's the cheapest guy that's batting, hopefully towards the top of the order, but, kind of look at it that way.
Well, I may have that guy for you. First off, I like Alexi Ramirez. He's hitting .353 this season against righties. I think he's got a good chance to get on. I also think he may have a good chance to steal today. Derek Norris is probably the worst defensive catcher. Obviously, I talked about him offensively. The big trade-off is you lose a lot on defense. He's thrown out just 1 of 15 base stealers this year. Ramirez is not a huge stolen base threat, but he can run a bit. So, I always like him offensively. If he can add a stolen base or two to that, I definitely would love that production. Chris Owings is a guy whose price has come up a bit, but if you look at it, last week they used him twice in the number 2 spot. He hits .444 at home. So I'm going to look over the lineups. If he's hitting second at a very cheap price, I will probably use him as shortstop. That could be the low price option that you're looking for. Although, like I said, his price is up a bit. He's not dirt cheap anymore. Jeffrey, who do you like in the outfield?
Oh, man, give me all the high-price guys. I feel like I'm going to be able to, with the money I save at, second base and potentially even shortstop. We talked about Cespedes. That's, he's one of the most expensive guys out there, but he's a guy, I think, against a weak left-hander that you really have to have. He's batting third or fourth in that lineup and should have plenty of opportunity there. And then give me Trout and Bautista, the next two best guys. Again, I talked about hitters at the Rogers Center. Guys with power, Trout can steal bases as well. I think that, if you can afford them, like I should be able to, especially saving money on a guy like Tim Lincecum and not having Felix Hernandez tonight, I'm going really expensive at outfield.
Yeah, for me, I like that Cespedes call. I'm a bit scared to start him at his price, but I'm also scared not to start him because I mean he's pretty much boomer bust. 3 home runs in his last 24 at bats. But for a guy who's as inconsistent as he is, I don't like paying over 8,000 for him. So I'm a bit torn. I put him in here just because I'm scared to not have him in my rankings as well.
He's worth it today. Yeah.
Carlos Beltran has 4 home runs in 44 at bats against Cologne. Also, 4 of his 5 homers have come from the left side this season. That's a guy I like in Yankee Stadium as well. I considered making him my home run pick too. Shin-Soo Choo is hitting .513 on the road this year. I think he's a great option today. And then I think the best of the cheapest guys would be Matt Holliday. He's hitting .364 at home, facing Wood, who Dave mentioned isn't very good on the road, allowing a .371 batting average on the road. So I really like that home and road split in Holliday's favor. I may use him to save a bit of money. Dave, what are you thinking in the outfield?
Well, I agree with many of the names you threw out there. I think Cespedes and Trout are 2 guys you have to have in the lineup. I mean, I wish there were 4 outfield spots because I think there are at least a couple more guys. In fact, my top outfield.
Sorry.
Well, I already mentioned that Victor Martinez, who's my home run pick of the day. I've got no choice on Fanmouth but to play him at utility. But he's a strong play anyway. But I think my top outfield play of the day, all things considered, and you get him at a bargain price, is Alan Craig. I mean, Alan Craig eats up left-handers. He's got 30 at-bats against lefties this year, 5 extra base hits, a couple of home runs. I considered making him my home run play. You mentioned, Joe, there a minute ago that, Wood has a huge high batting average against on the road this year. He's actually a pretty good pitcher, so I presume as the season goes along he's going to get better. But for now, I'll ride those numbers. Craig has a huge OPS against lefties this year. I love the matchup. I'd throw Holliday in there if I needed to save money as well. I think both of them are bargain plays in the outfield given the matchup. But I just don't, I've got money to spend, so I'm going to go. With Trout and Cespedes. But Craig will definitely be in there.
Okay, that takes care of all of the positions. Jeff, you want to go ahead and give us your final word?
Sure. Final strategy. Like I said, it's really difficult to figure out the pitching today, so make sure you do your research there and feel comfortable with it. It's not something you want to just kind of skim over, and this is not something you want to take lightly as pitching tonight. And if you decide to go with suggestions that we've made, like Tim Lincecum and Lyons, the guy that Dave really likes a lot today, that leaves you $8,422 average remaining for the rest of your lineup. So you can save money at pitching today and just absolutely stack your lineup. Pretty much you need like 1-2 sleepers at the most, or lower price guys, and you can just go with the best guys at every position. And being that pitching is going to be such a crapshoot today, I really don't mind it. People like Felix Hernandez a lot more than I do. Like, people will tell you need to lock in Felix because he's the only sure thing, but I don't think is a sure thing. I think that fading him is not a bad way to go.
I think that's really good advice from Jeff there. I think everyone watching this should take it because I'm now considering it. Maybe I will go stick with Zimmerman and add Lyons, who is a guy that I like, that Dave really likes. Like he said, that's going to give you plenty of flexibility offensively. I still like Teixeira. I think you should absolutely have him in the lineup. If you go a little cheaper pitching, you could add Derek Norris, get a few A's, a few Yankees in there. And then I think we kind of agree in the outfield. There's guys you need to have in there. Beltran, Cespedes. They talked about Trout. I like Shu a lot tonight. Obviously use one of those guys in your utility spot, or use a first baseman in your utility spot. Dave, what final word?
Well, the way I look at it, today's not a night where you really have to go overboard to save money. I mean, I don't think, Tulowitzki's not playing, first off, so immediately your shortstop is not going to be a real high-price guy. But I think at second base, shortstop, and third base, there's really no real high-priced guy to go with. I think you're going to save money almost automatically at those 3 positions. I already said I'm saving money at one of my pitcher positions. I'm thinking about playing Crone at first base, which is going to save a boatload of money, and I'm definitely going to play Craig in the outfield, which saves a bunch of money. And I think when push comes to shove, I'm going to be I'm going to be looking to spend more money at the end rather than saving it. So I think there's a lot of really good low-priced options out there, and that's going to lead me to go with a guy like Hernandez, where I like the matchup. I mean, he's got the most strikeouts of anybody going tonight. Tampa's not a good hitting team against right-handed pitching. They don't have a very good pitcher going tonight, so I think Hernandez is in one of those positions where I think he's going to pitch deep into the game with a lead, and all that adds up in fantasy points. So I like him a lot more than Jeff does. But I think that if there was one of those typical nights where, I've already got 2 Lewitsky, I've already got 3 high-priced outfielders, I got a high-priced third baseman, do I really have enough to afford Hernandez? Well, maybe I give it some second thought, but I don't think this is one of those nights.
All right, good stuff from Dave. A bit of contrasting opinions there. But we do, if you look over our rankings, blog.fanmouth.com, there's a lot of places where we agree. I think, we've given a lot of good information. Thank you guys for joining me today. Don't forget to go sign up. You can play against us, fanmouth.com. We will be back tomorrow. Thank you guys.